All right, let's see here. My gosh, guys. I'm like, by the way, I have like a really bad cold all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on with that. That's kind of strange. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, by the way. We are live as of right now. There we go. All right, very cool.
For tuning in,
let me turn that down. All right, guys, we are more prepared tonight for today's or tonight's discussion. Yesterday, I tried live streaming, and it was an absolute cluster F. So we're going to get right to it. There is quite a bit to talk about. So, hey, let's begin first with the current radar. This is taking a look at Radarscope. We have, right now, a severe weather situation unfolding in the Gulf Coast states. We've had a couple of reported tornadoes in some spots, especially near Louisiana and then also Mississippi. Here are the latest warnings right now. So we do have a couple to talk about. And again, we're kind of jumping right into it tonight. Tornado warning, of course, this is going to be for, looks like Central Simpson, Central Smith counties. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located near Raleigh, moving northeast at 35 miles per hour. This is still radar indicated, but it is going to be near Raleigh and Center Ridge, and then Silvarena around 8:10 p.m. Central. At the moment, we are seeing some relatively broad rotation initially, but look at that couplet right there. That's really starting to show some tighter rotation as we get into the evening hours tonight. So let's actually go back a couple of frames here. And you see that overall it was pretty broad, right? We weren't even actually seeing much rotation. We had a little bit of a tight couplet just to the east of Maggie and then to the northwest of Mize. But then, you know, it sort of faded away for a bit there. But now we're starting to see that reemergence once again of that tight couplet. That is rather concerning, especially because we are starting to see that low-level jet strengthening this evening, and that's going to create more of that veering profile that we actually saw even in the beginning of the day. So we have had that low-level veering to where that does create tornadic development. Tonight, though, we've actually seen that veering strengthen, and that's a bad sign because that's exactly why we're seeing a lot of these storms really starting to pick up their rotation this evening. So for folks that are near Bay Springs, Lewin, Montrose, as well as Silvarena, you guys are certainly in the path of this storm. You want to be taking your precautions now, especially if you're downstream of this tornado warning. We actually just got a new frame in now. That's to the southwest of Silvarena there, and it's just getting even tighter, folks. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at CC here. And not seeing much on correlation coefficient. We do have some scattering going on, but nothing that correlates with the tight rotation there. And looking at the radar, I mean, this is really embedded within just a clustered mess of convection. I mean, even if we're not talking about rotating thunderstorms, we certainly are having a discussion here about a flash flood warning. So there also is concerns for rainfall as well. More on that here in a moment. Let's actually dial back in to these tornado warnings and get that information out to you guys. Again, Silvarena, Bear Springs, Lewin, Montrose, I am certainly concerned about you guys, especially downstream of that tornado warning. Even if you are not under a tornado warning yet, you are likely to be under one here, you know, possibly in the next 20 to 30 minutes. So you want to be taking your precautions now, and especially if you are in Silvarena, you're also going to want to be keeping an eye on this as well. This rotation really is starting to tighten here. We'll just go ahead and look at the loop again, and yeah, look at that, guys. That's really starting to ramp up just to the southwest of Silvarena. Bay Springs, you're going to be just to the east of this, but remember, these storms, especially the right movers, they can deviate even more to the east. That can happen, so we want to be making sure that we're keeping track of these things because you are definitely not out of the woods here. And again, for folks that are downstream of this tornado warning, I certainly am expecting that you guys will possibly, really likely, be under a tornado warning extension in the next 20 to 30 minutes. Not under a tornado warning now, but could see one here in the short term. We also have a tornado warning back towards the north near Raleigh. This expires here in 13 minutes. Was radar indicated. We did have some stronger rotation there, but really has lost its touch and has actually veered a little bit more to the left. And so if we're looking for a weakening storm, that certainly would be one of them. So I'm not expecting this to be extended. Of course, we'll keep a close eye on it and see if anything changes. But for folks near Forest, Lake, and Morton, especially near the interstate corridor here, we'll, of course, continue to keep a close eye on it. But right now, at least as it stands, this rotation has significantly weakened, and I'm expecting this to likely expire by the time we get to the next, say, 10 to 12 minutes. So, keeping a close eye here on Silverena. We're going to get back to that in a moment. Let's turn our attention also to our other tornado warning for Brookhaven, Silver Creek, as well as Monticello. And this is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado moving east at 40 miles per hour. This is still radar indicated and will be near places like Silver Creek, New Hebron, as well as Prentice and Progress around 8:40 p.m. So for folks in this area, you're going to want to take your proper precautions, get to the lowest floor of a sturdy building. And hey, if you do not have a basement, many of you do not in these areas, you want to make sure to get to a room that surrounds yourself with as much walls as possible. Don't leave yourself in a situation where you're next to a window. Surround yourself with as many walls as possible, preferably a bathroom, a bathtub, specifically to keep you safe during this event. Rotation on this storm is relatively broad, although we are still seeing some pretty strong velocities here right near Monticello. So be ready for some strong winds. Even if you're not seeing a tornado right this moment, there still is broad rotation with this thing, and it also is bringing about some strong winds. So be prepared for that. And then finally, our other tornado warning so far this evening is just to the west of Crosby, and this is currently radar indicated. And if my memory serves me correctly, we were actually seeing this storm producing a tornado earlier. I don't know if it was that one or if it was the one before, but we do have a current tornado warning on that. Again, radar indicated that was located near De La Rosa, and then Natchez moving east at 30 miles per hour. This will, of course, looks like it's going to be over rural areas of northeastern Wilkinson County. And that warning is set to expire here in the next 10 minutes. So, at least at the moment, I guess the main concern would be this storm in Silverena. Let's take a look at it now. Did have that tight rotation in the last 5 minutes, but is sort of died off a little bit here. Still radar indicated, remains in effect till 8:45, so tornado and quarter-size hail and radar indicated rotation. So we have not yet seen that tornado warning necessarily extended, although rather slightly. So if you are in places like Bay Springs, Lewin, Montrose, you are definitely in the way of this storm. So you're not under a tornado warning yet, just like what we talked about at the top of the stream, but you certainly want to be taking your proper precautions now, getting prepared in case that tornado warning is issued to go to the lowest floor of a sturdy building, or, in your case, surround yourself with as many walls as possible. By the way, for those of you guys here on the video, if you have any questions at all, anything that I can answer for you, go ahead and post those down in the comments below. We're going to be streaming here for a while. A lot of our discussion tonight is really going to be centered around the severe weather that's expected to continue well into the overnight and into tomorrow morning. And let's actually zoom out here and show you, for folks that are wondering, I'm particularly concerned about places in west central Mississippi. Let's actually draw that a little bit better for you here. West central Mississippi and Alabama. West central Alabama, not Mississippi. West central Alabama. You certainly are under the gun. Look, you're not seeing directly severe weather right this minute, but I am certainly concerned about you going into the overnight, especially as these storms continue to move through. And again, we're keeping an eye, and we actually just had an extension of that tornado warning, just as I suspected here. And this is going to be now for Bay Springs, Lewin, and Montrose. This is still radar indicated, but it is going to be near Bay Springs, Lewin, and Montrose, just like we talked about. Turnerville around 8:25, Garlandville, Paulding, and Rose Hill around 8:45, Orange around 8:55. Radar indicated at the moment. If we take a look here at our velocities, we did see that tight little couplet really kind of fall apart, but keep in mind the conditions are still favorable for redevelopment in this storm. So don't put your guard down. It's radar indicated right now, but this storm is really trying to get its act together here with its rotation. So be sure, please take your proper precautions, get to the lowest floor of a sturdy building, and stay away from windows. Our other storm that we talked about here at the top of the conversation, this I expect to expire, all right, but it hasn't expired yet. They're going to let it kind of wind down the clock, but we did have some tighter rotation earlier to the southeast of Polkville, but that has died off pretty significantly. I would suspect a lot of that having to do with this storm to the south really starting to bite off a lot of that rotational inflow and pretty much choke it off. It's also sort of veered off to the left too, so expecting that to weaken. And also for folks near Lake, Forest, Newton, expect for the tornado warning to your southwest. It will likely expire, but for you guys downstream of these two tornado warnings, do not let your guard down. All right? Again, this is a favorable environment for tornadic development, especially as this low-level jet really ramps up and continues to strengthen into the evening and overnight hours. We are not done with rotating thunderstorms this evening. That is for sure. We're going to continue to keep a close eye on these two tornado warnings tonight. We also have a couple back here that I want to mention and revisit. Still a tornado warning set to expire in 37 minutes for Monticello, Silver Creek, and Prentice. This is still radar indicated. Same situation here, guys. Broad rotation just to the east of Brookhaven. Keep an eye on this storm, though, because we are still seeing some pretty strong winds according to our inbound flow. We're talking about certainly just above ground level, around 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. So we definitely have some strong winds to worry about with this storm. Hey, even if you're not seeing a tornado right this moment, expect to see some of those stronger winds move through Monticello and Silver Creek by the time we get to, say, 5-10 minutes from now. The other tornado warning we have that is active still is just to the west of Crosby this evening. This is also radar indicated rotation. Same situation here too. Broad rotation to the west of Crosby. It's in a favorable environment. These storms have had a history of recycling. We saw a couple of touchdowns this evening and earlier on this afternoon, and that certainly is the case going into the rest of tonight. We are certainly not done with it. The other storyline I'll kind of mention to you guys as well that sort of gets lost in all of this is we actually also have a flash flood warning, and we've seen 2 to 4 inches of rainfall right near Copiah County in Simpson County of central Mississippi. Let's keep in mind something, guys. I know we're talking about tornadoes, we're talking about damaging winds and hail being the main hazard, but let's remember that this area of the country has been dealing with exceptional drought. So we are seeing a lot of these storms really begin to train here, especially in this flash flood warning area. I mean, look at this, guys. We're seeing a lot of convection here across this swath of south central Mississippi all the way back into east central Louisiana. So even if you might not deal with the bulk of the severe weather, right? Let's say you're missing out on it. The other threat that we have to worry about here is flash flooding. And flash flooding is a very lethal hazard. Turn around, don't drown, all right? So let's be mindful that, we're going to probably see a lot of runoff with this precipitation tonight, and that's going to lead to some flooded roadways. So keep that in mind. I know we've been talking about the threat for tornadoes. We've talked about damaging winds and hail. But the other hazard that we have to worry about for an area that's dealt with some extreme drought conditions is a lot of precipitation within a short period of time. Also, the other thing I wanted to note here, guys, that I think is really important, look at this. This is all essentially inflow, right? These are additional clusters of showers and thunderstorms that are forming just to the west of Mobile. For our folks in Mobile, you're not seeing any severe weather right this moment, but I will say that this line will continue to move off to the east as it becomes a little bit more frontal and more congealed into this quasi-linear convective system. So main threat for you guys will likely be some heavier rain. Could see also some embedded severe thunderstorms with this as well by the time we get into Mobile and even towards Pensacola by tomorrow morning. So again, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and post those down in the comments below. Let's head on back to Lewin, Bay Springs, and Montreux. This is still radar indicated. Let's flip back on our velocity here. And as you can see, still relatively broad, right? Not seeing a lot in the way of tight rotation. right? It's again, relatively broad near Silverena, Bay Springs, Lewin Montrose. This will continue to move off to the east. You guys at this point should be taking your proper precautions. And right now at the moment, we currently have 4 tornado warnings. I forgot to mention too, we also have another flash flood warning in east central Louisiana. And this was actually just issued within the last 25 minutes. Also seeing in this area of the Evangeline Parish between 1 to 2 inches of rain. Expected rainfall rate 0.5 to 1.5 inches in 1 hour. A lot of training thunderstorms, guys. That's a pretty big concern. I'm certainly worried about flash flooding along with the other hazards that we talked about during this stream. So, 4 tornado warnings now. Also, the last thing I wanted to mention, the honorable mention, is that we do have a severe thunderstorm warning, and that's for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail. That was associated with this cell that has now moved off to the east and has a tornado warning tag on it. This severe thunderstorm warning we expect to expire here in the next couple of minutes. One other thing I wanted to mention, guys, if you remember at the top of this afternoon, we had a lot of discrete activity with these cells. This is now pretty much congealed into, like I said, a quasi-linear convective system, a QLCS system. And so essentially what that does is you have a lot of these storms, especially up towards the north and east, trying to fight for rotation, right? Trying to fight for that inflow, which is critical if we're trying to get those mesos to form and those rotational cells. And so I would expect that as we get into the early morning hours, even with that low-level jet, I still would think to see some of these storms rotating, right? We could see some embedded rotation within these cells. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, considering the fact that our low-level jets can be rather strong even going into tonight, it's just going to be more of a cells embedded within a line structure, as opposed to something we might see that's a little bit more discrete. So that's what we have right now. Also, if you're in areas to the east of all these warnings, Meridian, if you're by Tuscaloosa, if you're by Columbus, and even Demopolis, you're seeing some stratiform precipitation. Don't let that fool you. Should expect to see some of the more convective cells moving into the region by the time we get to tonight. So let's go ahead and, while we have a moment, let's take a look here at the Storm Prediction Center. We currently have 5 tornado reports that were confirmed as of today. Of course, guys, keep in mind these are going to be evaluated later on by the local National Weather Service to just assess and see what the strength is of these tornadoes. And so we do have 5. We had a couple that touched down here in south central Mississippi. TDS noted on Sharon and Robinson roads. We had a TDS and a TDS. These are all radar indicated. A debris signature as well around 240. So all these were radar confirmed. Hats off to the National Weather Service down there in Shreveport, as well as Jackson, doing a phenomenal job tonight in getting all these warnings out. We expect to continue to see the severe weather going into later tonight and into the morning tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of people that are up tonight. So again, hats off to those guys. Phenomenal job. And of course, we got a lot of chasers down there, so please be safe. It's very dangerous to chase down there. Only the ones that are very experienced really know how to navigate that. And even the experienced ones, the experienced chasers, will tell you themselves that it's rather dangerous to chase, and it's even difficult for them. So one other thing I wanted to do, just to show you sort of what the environment we're dealing with. We're taking a bit of a break here from the radar. Wanted to show you some observed soundings if I can, and I believe we had one from 0 UTC. This would have been tonight. So let's take a look at that here from Jackson just to see the environment. And oh my goodness. Wow. That is incredible amount of shear. My goodness. So this is looking at an observed sounding from Jackson. So this is when they launched those weather balloons. Those weather balloons are collecting data. And so what we're seeing here is a pretty decent cape profile. Surface cape is around, say, 1138. Let's actually use black here. We got 1138 joules per kilogram, right? Also heavily saturated above the surface. So overall, we do have a little bit of some dry air intrusion towards the surface, but we're relatively saturated here, and a pretty sizable Cape profile, and decent lapse rates, guys. I mean, this is a very relatively unstable atmosphere. From the thermodynamic point of view, when we're talking about Cape, I mean, it's not an copious amount of Cape to where it's like 3,000 to like 4,000. But I will say, I mean, it's still a lot, right? For this time of environment, you don't even need a lot. It's like I said, I think at one point today it was like 1,500 to 2,000. That is more than enough in the month of November. That's all you need, right? And the reason why is because look at our kinematic environment. Look at the wind shear. Surface to 1, 24 knots. Surface to 3, 48 knots. Nearly 50 knots. Surface to 3 kilometer shear. Effective inflow layer, 34 knots. And then our bulk effective shear is around 50. This is a more than supportive environment for producing cyclical, discrete to semi-discrete supercells. Even if that didn't excite you, well, depending on where you live. If you live in the south, it probably doesn't. But if you're a weather enthusiast like myself, it's fascinating to see. Look at your veering, right? So you got winds out of the southeast as of this evening. And then as you go a little bit above the surface, you're southerly, and then southwesterly, southwesterly, west, west, west. And look at how strong your winds are aloft. These flags represent 50 knots. You're talking about 120 to 130 knots of pure westerly flow. A lot of that having to do with the Pacific jet aloft. So really powerful system. And also look at your low-level winds, right? We're talking about, again, anywhere between, say, 30 to 40 knots of 850 millibar flow, which in this case, if you're trying to get tornadoes and you're looking for a tornadic environment, this would be it, right? The other thing to point out, too, is our hodograph. And so what this shows is it's really kind of a top-down approach. It shows you what the rotation is and the overall storm behavior. And look at that. That is very cyclical looking. Classic hodograph if you're trying to look for a supercellular structure, as seen here on the Jackson sounding observation. And the other thing to point out, too, the lapse rates really overperformed today, in my opinion. Surface to 3 kilometer AGL lapse rates around 7 Celsius per kilometer. 3 to 6, 850 to 500, hovering right around 6. So this is more, I mean, more than enough you need for the type of setup that we were looking for today, which is why the Storm Prediction Center had put out an enhanced risk. The honorable mention, too, is the storm relative helicity. We got 207, 390, and 282, right? So we got some pretty good relative helicity going on as well. Effective inflow layer at 282. If we're looking for those rotating updrafts with height, that would be the environment to produce it, and we have enough helicity to do it. And by the way, that's in meters squared per second squared, in case anybody's wondering. Also, right movers moving at about 30 knots at about 203 degrees, and our left movers are moving at about 54. So, if you're wondering, yeah, this is a pretty damn good environment for severe weather. Let's head on back to the current radar. And here we go. So that storm we were looking at for Bay Springs, Lewin, and Montrose, it looks like it lost its inflow notch here as it moved through Bay Springs. Let's go ahead and take a look at the warning still. And it is radar indicated as of 8:34. It's going to be moving into Montrose finally. Garlandville, Paulding, and Rose Hill around 8:45. Orange around 8:55. And that's going to continue to move off to the east. So if you are in places like Enterprise, Stonewall, you guys are next in line for this cell as it continues to move off to the east and the northeast. Like I said, it has lost its inflow notch a bit, might be becoming a little bit more outflow dominant. I'm starting to see a little bit more of a bowing structure there in this cell. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a brief period of damaging winds here with this storm as it moves to Enterprise Stonewall. So not under a tornado warning right now, not under any warning at all. But you are downstream of a pretty strong storm, so you want to make sure you're taking your precautions now. If you're in places like Enterprise, Stonewall, and even Quitman, just to the southeast of it. You might get clipped by this thing, so be prepared for that as well. But I'm mostly concerned here about Enterprise and Stonewall as we go into the next, say, 15 to 20 minutes. Not under a warning yet, but I'm expecting it to be one soon. Even if it's not a tornado warning, it might be some sort of advisory, like a severe thunderstorm warning or a special weather statement. But currently the tornado warning is to your west. And if we take a look here at the rotation on our velocity scan, wow, look at that. My goodness. This thing is just broken apart, right? We had tight rotation at the top of the stream, and it has completely just become more outflow dominant. I mean, look at that. You can even make out the arc here to where much of this is a little bit more of a cold pool, and now we're seeing more of winds, straight line winds near Lewin and Montrose. So still under a tornado warning. We are seeing some broad rotation within these little pockets within sort of that outflow. But this right now is not looking good as far as any rotational development. It's really starting to fall apart. I'm wondering if this is becoming a little bit more on the outflow dominant side. Should see those storms continue to move off to the east. So to the west of that, though, and to the southwest, we still have that tornado warning for Silver Creek and Monticello, and this is still radar indicated, going to be near Silver Creek and Manila around 840, Prentice and New Hebron around 850. At the moment, and the same thing applies for this storm, guys, we've seen some pretty broad rotation here, but overall some strong winds near Monticello. We are getting a little bit of de-aliasing on the radar here. I'm wondering why that is. I do not want spectrum width. I wanted correlation coefficient. There we go. Yeah, by the way, I want to mention this too, guys. If you see this on correlation coefficient, this is not debris, right? This is essentially, I wouldn't even call it a three-body scatter spike. It's mostly just some sort of scattering going on. It may have to do with some heavier precipitation, could be some hail. If we were seeing large hail, this CC would really light up like a Christmas tree. But instead, this is likely because of really heavy rain that's taking place within this storm. And we can actually verify that by looking here at the reflectivity. And, I mean, for the most part, yeah, we do have some heavier DBZs here. Could be some heavier rainfall with this storm. Also, similar situation. Not seeing much in the way of an inflow notch here. Even closer in, there is very little of an inflow notch. And if anything, it's going to be just, I guess, to the southwest of Monticello. It's going to be right in this area. It's trying to get its act together again, but that rotation of concern is actually going to be a little bit more to the north of where that hook is located of Monticello. That storm's going to continue to move off to the east. I am keeping a close eye on it, though, because like I just said on reflectivity, it is trying to hook around a little bit just near Monticello, maybe trying to establish a new area of rotation. We'll keep a close eye on that during the evening hours. A couple of more updates here. We had a few tornado warnings that were lingering around just to the north of Jackson. These have now been expired and have been set to expire. These storms have certainly fallen below severe limits, but we are expected to see some heavier rainfall with these storms. If you're in places like Macomb and in Brookhaven, you're going to be seeing some additional heavier showers and thunderstorms move through the region. Be on the lookout for some heavy rain as you continue your travels out there. Back towards Bay Springs, as we started our conversation, still radar indicated, and just as I suspected, this is becoming more outflow dominant by the run. And so I would expect here to see this, I'm not seeing much rotation on this storm at all. Really weakened out here. The storm has become outflow dominant, like I mentioned. It's cold air that's essentially rushing forward with this storm, and it's weakening it, right? It's weakening the rotation almost to where there is none, and there really isn't. There might be some very broad rotation to the southeast of Lewin, but for the most part, this storm is outflow dominant. Expecting more here of a damaging wind threat by the time it makes its way just to the west of Enterprise and Stonewall. So for you folks, you certainly want to still keep an eye on this storm. Expect to see some heavier downpours, some intense lightning, and maybe even some damaging winds they move through. No severe warning yet, but of course we will keep a close eye on that. Just to recap, we have 2 tornado warnings. Again, one for the southwest here of Meridian, and then we have another out towards Monticello, Prentice, and New Hebron. And, for the most part, That's going to keep things pretty much the way it is right now. Nothing new here, although we are keeping an eye on Monticello. This storm is looking rather interesting to me, just because it is showing some decent rotation and really still some strong inbound, outbound velocities. So let me look here at the reflectivity on this guy. And yeah, it's developing a hook. It's trying to hook again. So in these, oh, actually, you know what? I don't need that pen. Why do I keep doing that? It is trying to hook, and it might recycle. So this is still radar indicated for you folks in Silver Creek, New Hebron, Prentice. But we are starting to see that inflow notch really start to kind of tight around again. Could really indicate here some low-level veering or some low-level flow making its way, or that low-level jet really helping it to hook. To the north of that, as we mentioned, flash flood warning, and then we also have a secondary flash flood warning just towards the south of Alexandria. In addition, an honorable mention is for our folks in southern Louisiana. We have a severe thunderstorm warning that is now active, and this is going to be to the south of Lafayette, and it's going to be near Wright or near Goyden, moving east at 30 miles per hour, 60 mile per hour wind gusts with this, radar indicated. It's going to be near Abbeville, Kaplan, Goyden, Muex, Wright, Lions Point, Indian, Bayou, and Florence Landing. Taking a look at this cell, this is also, I can already tell on reflectivity, very much outflow dominant. All right, so we do have some cold air rushing out ahead of it, producing some likely damaging winds just to the southwest here of Kaplan. And this storm is going to be near Abbeville. So Abbeville, if you are downstream or you know folks in Abbeville, be prepared for some damaging winds. Not seeing much in the way of rotation. We'll confirm that here with velocity. And no, this is straight line winds right here. As you can see, just based off of our velocity map, that is rushing straight into Abbeville. And then eventually, Declambre. Wait, did I say that right? Delcambre? Delcambre. I think that's correct. Delcambre, you guys are not under a severe thunderstorm warning quite yet, but I am expecting you to be dealing with these storms by the time we get to, well, again, the next probably 15, 20 minutes or so. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Not seeing much in the way of rotation. I mean, this is incredibly broad, but keep in mind a lot of this is rushing forward. It's not rotating. You have to keep a close eye on it, though, because sometimes you can get some embedded rotation within a longer line of storms. So we'll just have to kind of watch that space here for a bit. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll let you know if anything changes, but for the most part, just damaging winds we're concerned about with that storm. Working our way back to our 2 tornado warnings. Not surprised here. Mainly just straight line winds. You do have some broad rotation just near what would be, let me actually switch that. Just to the south and east of Montrose. You do have some rotation as well, relatively broad. Could be trying to recycle some rotation. We'll keep a close eye on that for you folks in Enterprise and Stonewall. Still mostly worried about some damaging winds there. And then, of course, with Silver Creek, Monticello, keeping a very close eye on this cell. Look at that. It really is trying to hook here. We'll see if it can get its act together. And actually, let's take a look here at the Storm Prediction Center, back to what we were looking at before. We won't even look at the soundings. What I would like to look at is the meso-analysis. This is going to provide us a lot of data as far as what this environment looks like. So with that storm, you got about 65 knots of bulk shear. That's amazing. Not good for that storm if you're trying to not have it rotate, right? Surface to 1 shear is around 30 to 35 knots. Surface to 3... 35 to 40. Downdraft Cape was a little bit more confined to the southern part of Louisiana. Not too worried about that. Effective helicity 300. Okay. Yeah, this is a pretty damn good environment. And actually, the other thing I want to look at too is the photographs. Let's see that too. Yeah, you're veering pretty hard. Right in this area. So particularly concerned about that cell. And I believe that cell has had a history of producing tornadoes. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I believe that storm has had a history of producing tornadoes. But if we look at, by the way, the wrap going into the rest of the night, we do see those storms beginning really to congeal into a line. You actually see, and this actually would take us into 2 UTC. So let's see, actually not 2 UTC. That would be, what would that be, 8Z? So at that point, we're talking about like early tomorrow morning. You still have you still have low-level veering going on. So we could be talking about some rotating storms going into the overnight into tomorrow morning. I think that's certainly a plausible thing to think about. But like I said, we're going to keep a really close eye on this storm, this cell that's near south central Mississippi. I am very concerned about that guy, as that's really starting to kind of feed in some low level shear and help it to rotate. We got some nice veering profiles right now on our hotographs. The other thing I wanted to see too is the SCUT. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, you're saturated. your boundary layer is very saturated. And also, last thing, precipitable water. We've been talking about the threat for flash flooding. We got PWatt values in between, say, 1.5 to 1.6. So definitely worried about some training of storms. Could produce some heavier downpours. You've actually seen that already. We got a couple of flash flood warnings right now that are currently active. So we'll of course keep a close eye on that. Flooding concerns aplenty for a region that has dealt with drought conditions over what seems to be the last several weeks. So it's been pretty crazy. Let's check back in with the Storm Prediction Center, see what outlooks we have. I apologize, guys. My nose is like runny. Good God. So this tornado watch is in effect. It's going to be in effect here till what? What do they have it till? 11 p.m.? 11 p.m. It'll be interesting to see, chat, if they extend the tornado watch. I'm actually curious to see if they do that. Just because, again, if we go back to our mesoanalysis here, I mean, we have a lot of shear. And you're talking about surface to 1, 30 knots. Surface to 3, 40 to 45, right? And like I mentioned, this storm I'm really concerned about right now. We'll check out back at that in a moment. And then also your hotos right now. I mean, chat, look at this. That's some pretty damn good veering. So, I mean, I know a lot of folks on the weather Twitterverse were talking about this being a bust. Keep in mind, we weren't expecting the low-level jet to really strengthen until tonight. And we also have had a few tornado reports too, right? We've actually seen that take place. We already had 4 tornado reports in south central Mississippi. We had 1 back in Louisiana. So this system's not done. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not a bust. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't believe in the bust stuff anyway. I think that anything that produces a tornado, especially in a really vulnerable area like Alabama, Mississippi, is significant. And we already have had those tornado reports take place. It'll also be interesting to see in the next couple of days what the National Weather Service survey team finds. Because all those tornado reports tonight, chat, that was all radar indicated. It was all radar confirmed. I think there might have been a spotter or two, but these were radar confirmed tornadoes for the most part. So let's head on back to our current radar and give you an update here. Again, this cell is what I was concerned with. We'll get back to that in a moment. Let's check back with our other tornado warning just to the west of Enterprise in Stonewall. This is still active as of 8:46. Currently, radar indicated still. Tornado quarter-sized hail going to be near Paulding and Rose Hill around 8:50. Orange around 8:55 p.m. We'll take a look here at the velocity. The story on this storm, guys, has been it's just kind of really fallen apart. We had some tighter rotation back towards even Bay Springs and Taylorville to start the video tonight and the live stream. And a lot of this has become a little bit more outflow dominant, right? So because of that, we're seeing some pretty broken up rotation, still some green on red rotation there, but not a tight and strong couplet like we were seeing before, relatively weak. And for the most part, I'd be curious to see what the Weather Service does with this. There is still the chance, guys, that we actually do see this storm recycle and try to rotate again, given the environment we're in. So I certainly don't want to rule out this storm from trying to recycle, but at least as it stands right now, because it's getting a little bit more outflow dominant, it's really preventing these storms and these rotations within the storm from strengthening and tightening up. So, by the way, for those of you folks in the chat that have any questions, go ahead and post those down in the comments below, and I will go ahead and answer those. Meanwhile, we have our secondary storm near Monticello. Been keeping a very close eye on this. Still some very strong winds we're seeing just above ground level near Prentice as well as Silver Creek. That's continuing to move off here to the east. Let's go ahead and take a look at this warning now. It should still be radar indicated, and it is. And it's going to be heading near Silver Creek and Winilla around 8:40, and then Prentice and New Hebron around 8:50. So I was concerned about this storm, as we just talked about in our conversation here, because of the inflow. It's in a really great environment, nice low-level veering, still some really strong winds aloft. Not only that, but a pretty decent cake profile in this region, even still. And if we look at the storm structure, just in the last couple of frames, we were seeing that hook trying to develop. And it's sort of struggling now. We still have a hook echo just to the southwest of Silver Creek, but this is it's really just kind of fighting for inflow here. We have hook number 1, and then we have hook number 2 to the west of Monticello. It's trying to go, but it's struggling because you have all these little embedded rotations that are trying to fight for inflow there. Tyler Burbeck, welcome to the stream, man. How you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. Maybe the National Weather Service will issue a severe thunderstorm warning, toward possible on the storm in Alabama. I suspect that too, and by the way, thank you so much for tuning in, Tyler. I suspect that too. We'll have to wait and see. Again, I think the toward possible tag is certainly plausible because, you know, it's in that environment to still try to recycle. And keep in mind, even storms that are outflow dominant like this one, it doesn't mean that it's like not going to rotate. I mean, we have had storms that are, you know, Boeing segments throughout history that can actually rotate on the northern flank of that cell. So given the environment, I don't want to necessarily rule out the fact that it's just going to be done because we have this low-level jet that just continues to strengthen. And so we're not talking about like a non-nocturnal event here. We're certainly talking about actually a strengthening environment. The problem is, and I think this is, and Tyler, I think I'm going to touch on something you may or may not want to talk about. I don't know, we'll see. Or that's been on your mind. These storms, right, you got to remember, I mean, you can have the best tornado environment possible. And honestly, we do. Like we talked about, really strong westerly flow on top of our low-level winds, right? Along with the fact that your shear is like 30 to 40 knots from surface to 3. Bulk shear is topping out around 60 to 65 in this area. I mean, everything's fantastic. And by the way, even your cape is good, right? You have all the ingredients necessary to see tornadic development. Oh, what's going on, Rose? How you doing? Thank you so much. What's going on, Rose? Glad to see you in the stream. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a plausible question, right? I mean, I think a lot of people, especially, you know, in talking about the weather, in talking about this setup today, you know, there was a lot of like, oh, this event didn't pan out like it should. Well, keep in mind, we have a really moist-rich sector, right? I mean, we're talking about, you know, dew points in a boundary layer that's really saturated. And so in classic Dixie fashion, we have a lot more of a congealed QLCS segment here that is sort of just becoming more of a clustered mess. And in this type of setup, in this type of storm mode, right, you're seeing a lot of these storms kind of fighting for inflow and actually struggling to rotate in this kind of environment. So, I mean, Rose, it's a great point you bring up about, you know, toward possible tags and things like that. In this environment, absolutely, you have low-level veering. But when it came down to forecasting, you know, ahead of this event, right, and people were talking about the setup for this, you got to keep in mind two variables that can play a big role. Morning observations, storm mode. Morning observations were great. Storm mode is just, it's clustered, right? And here's the other cool thing that I mentioned at the top of the conversation. This is all low-level veering, or low-level flow. Your low-level jet is literally picking up this reflectivity. How crazy is that, right? You're seeing that convection just feeding right in, right? So you're certainly seeing that. We could see, again, some showers and thunderstorms beginning for Mobile as soon as midnight tonight. Instead of this entire line moving through, we'll likely be talking about some significant rainfall, some heavier rainfall, I should say, for Mobile, Atmore, and then Bay Minette by the time we get to midnight tonight. So, anyway, Rose, if you have any other questions, let me know. And for the rest of the chat, if you have any questions, go ahead and type those down in the comments below. One other honorable mention we've also been keeping track on, and I've kind of talked about it a few times during the stream, kind of. And that's the severe thunderstorm warning that is to the south of Lafayette. And it just got extended. Look at that. All right, let's take a look at that right now. And this is going to be for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Iberia Parish, Lafayette, Vermilion, and St. Martin parishes in south central Louisiana. Mainly going to be damaging winds here. We see some straight line winds, and really you can actually see it on the reflectivity. A nice bowing segment moving through Kaplan and Abbeville, and then Del Cambre by the time we get to, say, 9:10 this evening. We'll see those storms move through. So primarily damaging winds, we'll take a look here at the velocity map, and it shows it as well. Really nice cold pooling going on just to the south of Kaplan. I would expect to see those stronger winds moving just downstream in places like Erath as well as Decambre. So Del Cambre, Erath, and Abbeville, you want to be ready for these strong winds because they are going to be moving through. Whenever you see velocities like this, guys, that is showing cold pooling. And that means cold air that is rushing forward. And you get a little bowing segment that produces mainly damaging wind. Not talking about a threat of tornadoes here with this storm, mainly just damaging straight line winds as that continues to move off towards the east. We'll, of course, keep a close eye on that. That is going to be just to the south of Lafayette, expecting the stronger winds to be, again, Abbeville, New Iberia, as well as Lydia in the next, say, 15 to 20 minutes. Let's head on back over to our current tornado warnings just to get a quick little update here. Wow. I mean, look at this storm, guys. It's really trying. We got two little areas of rotation to the north of our original hook echo, which was somewhere down here in this region. And it's really trying to go, guys. I mean, it's struggling quite a bit. But we still have a tornado warning in effect for this region. And let's click on that. There you go. And this is still radar indicated. And I believe no updates right now, it looks like. Still warned for Silver Creek and Winilla for 8:40. It's now 8:58. So the next people in line for these storms is going to be Prentice. I'd expect any tornadoes that get radar confirmed may likely be rain because they look really embedded. Yes, great point. Again, very saturated boundary layer, Rose. Very saturated boundary layer. In this case, we're talking about an environment that is going to support more rain-wrapped rotation. Probably what we're seeing here in Prentice, right? Notice how we got a couple of different rotational couplets. As a matter of fact, that one to the right just completely crapped itself. You still have one more off to the west that is hanging around just to the north of Silver Creek. But it's probably what we're seeing here. Now, if we looked at the reflectivity, though, here's what's interesting. If we look at the reflectivity, we did have that inflow notch, but that has just completely fallen apart. Now it looks like what we might see here, barring any change. Remember, we're still in a really good environment for tornadic development. Barring any changes, we're likely going to be seeing briefly a straight line wind event out of this thing. Maybe even some hail as well. We can take a look at that too. I didn't really look at that during the stream so far, so let's actually look at some VIL, vertically integrated liquid. And we do have a bit of a heavier precipitation core with this storm. So even if there was to be some rotation to the south of New Hebron, this is going to be rain wrapped. I mean, you got VIL that's pretty respectable, right? And that's showing some heavier precipitation. By the way, vertically integrated liquid doesn't always necessarily equate to hail. Usually when you're seeing like pinks and whites, right? Kilograms per MAZ, right? In that case, you might be talking about hail. Most likely you are. But when we're around this threshold, say about 23 to 25, This is likely some heavier rain, maybe some quarter-size hail that's mixed in, but for the most part, that's all there is to it. That's all she wrote. So I would expect that with any rotation of the storm, and we have seen a little bit, oops, that's really crappy. Any reflectivity with this storm, I mean, the rotation is just, it's not great, right? It's not great. And even as of right now, as it moved through Silver Creek, right, we do still have some rotation. We even had some to the north, but that is honestly just split left and right. So we'll keep a close eye on that here during the stream, but, you know, it's still a great environment. It still supports tornadic development. The problem is the storm mode. It's really struggling right now. Let's head on back towards our other tornado warning. Enterprise Stonewall, just to the west of you folks. Do have some rotation still trying to get together here to the west of Enterprise. This is still warned. We got an update here as of 8:46. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located near Montrose, 13 miles northeast of Bay Springs. That's going to be moving northeast at 35 miles per hour. Tornado and quarter-size hail with this thing. Let's also take a look at Ville as well. We do have a little bit of a heavier precipitation core within this storm. Let's go ahead and pull that up right now for you here. And same situation, right? Probably not talking about some large hail. If there is, like what's warned here on the tag, we are probably seeing some quarter-size hail embedded with heavier precipitation with this storm. Going back to the velocity, though, we did see some rotation just to the west of Enterprise. It is very weak, and it's also, I wouldn't even call it broad. There is a nice couplet there to the west of Enterprise. It's just very weak rotation. It has tightened a little bit, though. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. Hasn't strengthened any more than that quite yet. But again, as we've really kind of driven home over the last, say, I don't know, 45 minutes on my imaginary watch, these storms are in a phenomenal environment to rotate at any point in time. So if you're in any of these areas downstream of the storms we've seen so far tonight, I'm talking about you folks in west central Alabama, to the west of Montgomery, places like Selma, Demopolis, Thomasville, even for our folks in Meridian downstream of this current tornado warning, you want to make sure that you're weather aware. Have your weather radio ready, have your action plan ready in the event that these storms move into your area. These can rotate at any time. Right now, we only have one tornado warning and a couple of flash flood warnings littered across the map, and even a severe thunderstorm warning, that good old guster near New Alberia. So you want to make sure that you're planning ahead. I mean, these storms, again, can rotate at any time. This other storm that we were tracking here, as you see in Silver Creek and Prentice, the tornado warning has expired. Storm has dropped below severe limits. Still could rotate here, guys, but at least on reflectivity with the overall storm structure, we're not seeing much in the way of that classic cyclical inflow notch. This is all, a little bit more clustered and messy as it moves through New Hebron, Mount Olive. If you're not dealing with severe weather, you're certainly dealing with the flash flooding. Like I mentioned here at the top of our conversation, we have a couple of flash flood warnings here littered across. One to the south of Jackson, the other one to the southeast of Alexandria, Louisiana. We have a new severe thunderstorm warning to the west of Macomb. It expires in 40 minutes. This is going to be for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and the warning is going to be for northern Amite County, hopefully I said that right, in southern Mississippi. And this is going to be radar indicated, moving into places like Liberty, Gloucester, and Smithdale. So right now, just 60-mile-per-hour winds. We do have a TOR possible tag on this particular cell. Let's take a look at it here on the velocity. And yeah, we actually are seeing some broad rotation near Centerville. Mostly a lot of these velocities, and these are very strong winds moving into Liberty. Expect to see some 60-mile-per-hour gusts, especially for you folks in that locality. If you're in places like Macomb as well as Summit, you're not under the severe thunderstorm warning yet, but this cell is going to be moving into your region in your neck of the woods in the next 15 to 20 minutes, more than likely. I would even say actually 20 to 25 minutes. But really strong winds here shown on our Super Res velocity. Are seeing some some broad rotation. We actually even had this little area here to the north of Liberty we're going to keep a close eye on. Very weak rotation, but again, it is a tour possible tag, so this storm is showing some rotational characteristics. Nothing tornado warned yet, nothing confirmed yet, but we are seeing that at the moment. Hey, what's going on, Tyler? How many tours today? Great question, my friend, and welcome to the stream. We have actually had, as of this evening, 5 confirmed tornado reports. And I had mentioned this before, but all of these tornado reports, Tyler, these were confirmed by radar. These were not observational. And I want to be careful because I think there might have been some observations that were made tonight. We had quite a few storm chasers in these areas, but for the most part, I mean, we did have one near Nacogdoches, Louisiana, around 2:40 this afternoon, but that was radar indicated confirmed. And then we also had a bunch of TDS signatures that were noted. These are tornado debris signatures, Madison, Lincoln, and Simpson. All these confirmed by radar. And this makes sense, right? Because, I mean, if we look at the time here, we're talking about the evening hours for these other 4 tornado reports. So pretty fascinating, right? I mean, it makes sense because these are heavily forested areas, with the exception of, say, far western Mississippi. Once you get to, say, south central Mississippi, that's when you're really talking about some confirmed stuff through radar mostly, because it's just really hard to see. You got chaser convergence, and it's also dark. So it really is fascinating to see, but it also makes sense. The other thing I wanted to mention too, Tyler, is that, with these storms, I would say that we are going to have some survey teams move into the region over the next couple of days from the National Weather Service in Shreveport and Jackson. Hasn't been announced yet, but I'll be curious to see what the damage is on those. So yes, 5 tornado reports tonight, and we also do have something else to update you on since we have some time, and that is the mesoscale discussion, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Is it possible the severe thunderstorm warning near Lafayette as heads off to the northeast could start to develop some rotation? Rose, yes, it could. Because as we talked about, we have a lot of looping photographs right near central Mississippi. That's indicating a lot of veering, right? Really strong low-level jet. It's what we call meteorology a nocturnal low-level jet. So yes, to answer your question, there is that possibility. We cannot rule that out. And it actually goes into what the mesoscale discussion talks about. So this was just released a little bit ago, but it talks about a risk for a couple of tornadoes or damaging gusts over southern Mississippi may spread into southwest Alabama overnight. A tornado or 2 remains possible this evening over southern Mississippi, with a few damaging gusts possible as well. The severe risk may eventually spread into parts of southwest Alabama later on tonight. And it also goes on to mention a broken line of storms. Few supercells currently stretching east central Mississippi southwestward into southwest Louisiana. Deep layer shear remain favorable to sustained stells this evening, with effective SRH maximized over central Mississippi currently. Just like we talked about on the meso analysis, which we'll look at here in just a second. No, I'm doing good, Tyler. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. Always great to see you. We also had an EF1 tornado yesterday confirmed in Arizona. Isn't that crazy? I know. That's pretty wild. You would think that you would have tornadoes confirmed during like monsoon season. But the fact that we saw that yesterday, pretty impressive. Persistently southerly winds, the lower 2 kilometers, will continue to aid moisture advection up to 60 dew points, spreading north across southwest Alabama ahead of the ongoing Mississippi storms. A somewhat stable air mass exists east of a batch of warm advection showers now forming over southwest Alabama. We'll take a look at that here in a moment as well. Do not let me forget, because I've been pointing that out a couple of times during the stream tonight. And this general zone may be as far east as the main severe risk gets tonight. As cells continue east across Mississippi and approach the Alabama state line, additional watches may be considered. This is from Jewel tonight. So we talked about it all throughout this stream this evening. The idea that we could see this continuation of a tornadic threat going into the overnight hours. This is what we call a nocturnal low-level jet that really pumps in low-level veering into the overnight hours. So we're going to continue to track these storms as long as I am able to over these next few hours. If you have just joined the stream, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to share this with family and friends who will likely be impacted. And like I said, we'll probably be streaming here for a little bit longer to really just see what happens with these cells. Let's head on back over to Radarscope, and as we talked about, hey, look at that, severe thunderstorm warning extension for our folks in Enterprise and Stonewall. We've been mentioning you quite a bit, name dropping you over the last 30 minutes of this live stream. And let's take a look at it now. It looks as though they're going to let that tornado warning expire, but we do have a threat here for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and nickel-sized hail, radar indicated, and that's going to be moving into, as expected, Stonewall, Enterprise, and Pachuta around 9:05 p.m. Central Time. Savoy and Sable around 9:15. Middleton, 0. Cosseyville, Snell, and Alamucha around 9:45 p.m. And like I said, these storms are going to be moving here at the northeast at 35 miles per hour. So let's take a look here at the velocity map. Tony H., I got everybody from the group chat coming into the stream. Tony H., welcome, my friend. Thank you so much. We got all three T's, the triple T's, Tyler, Tony, and Tyler coming into the stream. And by the way, spell my name right. It's E-N. Come on, Tony. B-R-E-N-D-E-N. And my phone died. Damn it. I have no chat, guys. All right, hang on one second. We're going to charge the phone. Stay right there, and we'll keep you updated on the radar. Give me just like 5 seconds. Ooh, I have my tablet. Yes. I have my tablet. I have my tablet. All right, guys. Hey, by the way, for you folks in the chat, I can't see your chat, but I want to show you something really stinking cool. Can you guys see this? Look at that. That is my wallpaper on my iPad. It's Harry Potter. It's pretty cool, right? I'm such a dork when it comes to Harry Potter. All right, chat, give me a second for you folks. I know you're probably giving me crap right now for whipping out some Harry Potter, but let me... I'm getting all these alerts on my iPad here. I don't want to know about the Chiefs game. I don't care. Where's my live stream? Let's go back here a second, guys. Give me a moment. Hold on. Let's go to YouTube. And hopefully my iPad doesn't die here. That would really suck. Usually iPads have pretty good battery life, though. I'm actually not too worried about that. But like I said, I will be streaming for a little while as my nose runs. It's really disgusting. All right, chat, where are you? Let's see what I miss. Well, are you guys laughing at me? You're laughing at me. I hate you guys. I hate you guys. I really do. I'm just kidding. I don't hate. Tony, you know that. I don't hate. All right. Anyway, let's keep you updated here. Let's get back to the discussion. We got a severe thunderstorm warning. Enterprise Stonewall, right? And that's going to continue here over the next, say, when does it expire? 30, well, until 10 p.m. Actually, it's more like 50 minutes. So we're seeing this storm really begin to weaken. Not seeing much in the way of rotation. It's really tried to get its rotation back in order, but we're mostly seeing just kind of a damaging wind threat right now as it moves at the moment through Enterprise and Stonewall. And then just to the northeast of Pachuta. Love that name, Pachuta. Tornado warning is likely to expire. So actually it is in the next minute here. We're going to see that tornado warning drop. Flash flood warnings continuing. And the other concern that I have is really on this severe thunderstorm warning near Liberty as well as Gloucester. Still possible. It is not currently a tornado-warned storm, but we are seeing some signatures of rotation. It is so weak, guys. I mean, it's not anything that's meeting tornado warning criteria, but there certainly is some rotation here near Liberty, Gloucester, as well as just to the east of Crosby. So at the moment, though, if you're in Liberty, you probably just experienced some pretty strong winds that moved through. Tony said, why? Tony, what do you mean, man? I don't know what you meant, so clarify. I don't know what do you mean by why? Are you asking me why, or are you just typing the letter Y? Let me know. We had some strong winds move through Liberty. Like I said, probably saw some 60-mile-per-hour winds or something close to that. So we'll keep a close eye on that storm. Could see some rotation, just like this cell that was previously tornado warned near Bassfield. That is a infamous town that we all have come to know, unfortunately, for the wrong reasons. As we've had the Bassfield so-so tornado just a couple years ago Very infamous tornado. I believe that was 2020. I believe. So good news is not seeing any tornadoes tonight thus far for Bassfield So-So. Mostly just some damaging winds moving through the region. You could expect to see those in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Are you concerned? Oh, why am I concerned? About which one? You talking about this cell right here? I'm concerned because these storms are moving into an unfavorable environment for rotational development. That's why. The good news is, I mean, if there is any, is that the storm mode overall is relatively messy. You have a lot of storms that are getting choked out of their inflow by a bunch of other competing cells. So I'm concerned, but I'm concerned about the environment. The storm mode is messy. I still think that as we go into the overnight, just like what the Storm Prediction Center highlighted, wouldn't be a surprise to see some of these cells begin to recycle and rotate again. Or some new cells that are forming. And speaking of that, I forgot to mention this as well, guys. The SPC talked about it. This is all convective inflow. The SPC even highlighted that in their mesoscale discussion. Sadly, Bassfield tornado was on my birthday. Big yikes, April 12th. Oh, I didn't know that, Rose. Really? Seriously? Damn. Damn, that's rough. I'm sorry to hear that. It's a bad association to something, right? Have your birthday be on the same day as Bassfield So-So. Then again, my birthday, the 18th, I don't think... Is anything significant happen on April 18th in weather history? Chat, let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know if that's the case. Has there ever been a significant weather event on April the 18th in the United States? It can't be anywhere else in the world. It's got to be the United States. Tony, maybe do some research for me on that. I'm curious. I've actually never thought of that before. Okay, the other storm is our little guster that we have to take a look at here just to the south of Lafayette, Louisiana. Mostly damaging winds, just like we talked about. Really a bowing structure there. Beginning to move through Del Cambre and New Iberia this evening. Again, straight line winds, not expecting much in the way of rotation with these storms. Would be surprised to see some rotation. I don't even think this has a Tor possible tag on it. No, it doesn't, because it really is more of a bowing structure. Let's actually pause that here to show it once more. If I was to draw out that bow, right, it essentially would show cold air rushing forward. When these storms take on that bowing characteristic, that's actually showing straight line winds. Very localized straight line winds. We're not talking about a derecho. We're not talking about a larger scale MCS complex. We're just talking about here a bowing segment that is producing some localized damaging winds. In this case, just moved through Abbeville and then Del Cambre. Sadly, Bassfield tornado. Oh, you already mentioned that. Also, special marine warning is waterspout possible. Ooh, interesting. That is well off the coast. Yeah, waterspout possible. I wasn't really paying close attention to that, but you know, if it does move on shore, then we'll reconnect with you on that. We'll have to keep you posted. But yeah, gusty winds, gusty showers with this one. Some damaging gusty showers as it begins to move off to the east at 30 miles per hour. Hey, if you're in White Castle, not the fast food restaurant, the town, White Castle, Donaldsonville, you guys aren't under this severe thunderstorm warning yet, but you do have these storms and these strong thunderstorms along this overall line continuing to move off to the east. They will likely be in your area by the time we get to later on tonight, possibly at least around the 10 to 11 o'clock p.m. time frame. Tony said in 1880, more than 24 tornadoes were reported from Kansas and Arkansas to Wisconsin and Michigan. More than 150 persons were killed? Really? Wow. 1880. So my birthday falls on a severe weather event that took place in 1880. That's something. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Huh, yes, White Castle. Well, yeah, you know what? White Castle is... You did you retract that comment? What the hell? Dude, why? It's okay. If you like White Castle, leave it in the comments. I get it. I get it. All right, so listen, we have a few severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing. You know, we'll keep a continuous close eye on that. And like I said, I think I'm going to be live here till at least 11. And it's okay, chat. You don't have to stay up the entire time. I appreciate every single one of you for being here tonight and watching this stream. By the way, if you're watching this after it was live, I appreciate your support as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will also mention, too, we're going to be doing a live stream, I think... Oh, gosh. This week is so hella busy for me, guys. I might do one tomorrow morning. I don't quite know yet. I didn't plan on it, but there is some winter weather we need to talk about. We got some holiday travel. So for folks that are going to be traveling, I want to make sure that that discussion is derived just for you. So anyway, we'll see how things play out. Like I said, I'm probably going to stream tomorrow morning, sometime around, 7. And I think what I'll do is with the live stream, I'll probably just, I'll put it out there. And then, if folks want to come back and watch it, that's fine too. Because a lot of the things we discuss tomorrow morning are really going to be applicable for a lot of you that are going to be traveling. So I will be doing a live stream tomorrow. It'll probably be around, like I said, 7, 8 a.m. Central. It's just going to be a little bit more impromptu. I'm just going to put it out there. We'll talk about some winter weather. We'll talk about some travel conditions. I know a lot of us are going to be traveling during the Thanksgiving holiday. I know Tony's going to be traveling for Thanksgiving. I sure as hell know his occupation is certainly tied to the holiday travel, so he's going to want to pay very close attention to my forecast. Just saying. Straight from the NWS. Very cool. No, thank you for that, Tony. I was really curious, and it's not something that I've really explored as a question until now. I was just very curious about that. All right, severe thunderstorm warning still in effect for our friends in Stonewall. It's actually now moved through. I mean, look at that. It's really fallen apart. To be honest with you, I don't even think the velocities are that impressive here. Not really. If you're dealing with these storms, I mean, Enterprise, Stonewall, I've talked about you here all frickin' stream. And it really fell apart. Right? We're not seeing much in the way of rotation. We're not seeing a lot in the way of strong winds. Weather Service is keeping the severe thunderstorm warning up, right? As a precaution, it's still a really good environment for severe weather. So we have to keep a close eye on that. But if anything, you are seeing some heavy rainfall, maybe even some frequent lightning. And as we've talked about sporadically over this stream, if you're not dealing with severe weather, the other concern that I have for each of you is the flooding. We got a lot of rain. We got a lot of moisture. So flooding is very dangerous too. Let's not forget about that. And especially for an area like southern Mississippi and pretty much all of Louisiana that's dealt with exceptional drought and still is dealing with exceptional drought as of today. I'm not traveling, not this week. Good. Stay your ass home. Stay home. Stay home if you can, guys. And you know what? Any of you that are hosting Thanksgiving at your house, awesome. Kudos to you, right? Kudos to you. All right. So that is really it for the time being. I mean, the other storm we've really kind of kept a close eye on is this cell in Liberty and Macomb. You're actually starting to see, just like with our cell well to the west of White Castle in southern Louisiana, same thing applies here. We're starting to see this Boeing segment really moving through Liberty, starting to become a little bit more outflow dominant. And by the way, I feel like I'm getting sick. I don't like this. I feel my nose stuffing up. I don't know why. It's really weird. But yeah, I mean, pretty much just straight line winds here. Still severe thunderstorm warned. I want to see if it has a Tor possible tag on it still. Still does. Let's take a look here at the velocity. And yeah, there is still some. Well, actually, there is some to the southeast of Liberty we got to keep a close eye on too. And that's really been the theme of tonight's stream thus far, is that we've seen these rotational couplets tighten up in a brief period of time and then kind of fall apart. And then recycle, fall apart, recycle, fall apart. Not like the things we were seeing early on this afternoon, right? I mean, right now it's just it's just trying to get its act together. It really is. Flooding and drought does not mix well. No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. Nope. And a lot of that because your rainfall is just going to run off. When you got really dry conditions, that rain and that rain itself is not going to really sink into the soil. And so instead it's just going to run off, right? And you can get a lot of flooding to occur, flash flooding even for that matter. So some rotation beginning to develop near to the southeast of Liberty, just outside of our severe thunderstorm warning. So areas near Macomb and Summit, you got this storm just to your southwest, not under a severe thunderstorm warning yet, but you certainly want to keep a close eye on it, and we'll keep tabs on it here for as long as we need to. Like I said, I'm probably going to go here till about 11 Central, or until I lose my voice, one or the other. All right, back to our other cell. Severe thunderstorm warning still for southern Louisiana. And, I got to be honest with you, there really isn't much change here. You still got your cold pool that's intact. That's still moving off here to the east and with some damaging winds, sustained damaging winds as well. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the localities that will likely be impacted. New Iberia, Louisville. That is definitely French. And Jeanneret, which you guys are not under any severe thunderstorm warning at the moment. Looks like it might just be to your north, but you are in Louisville and you're in St. Martinville. You guys certainly need to be watching these storms very closely. Neither does heavy rainfall. Agree. The other side of it too, guys, I talk about drought as sort of the runoff situation, right? When the soil's really dry, it doesn't soak up all that rain. The other thing is, if it's just running off, it can come from even a saturated soil table as well. If you've rained too much, then the water table can't absorb anymore. And they can also kind of pond and run off that way too. There's really two extremes. It's either you're really dry or really wet. Either one could create flooding concerns. Let's head on back here to KDGX. So overall, guys, we got 3 severe thunderstorm warnings. We got 1 so far with a tour possible on it that we're going to keep a close eye on here, loop by loop. It looks like it's trying to get something going to the southeast of Liberty, but it's really struggling, guys. Really struggling. So, yeah, we'll kind of keep a close tab on that. One thing that I wanted to look at that I haven't pulled up yet during the stream is WAFs. This is the Warn-On Forecast model. I love this a lot because what this does is this actually updates every half an hour. So we'll look here at the 2:30, so 2:30 UTC, and let me pull up here if I can actually get a composite reflectivity. And so here's what it's showing, right? This is actually updating every half hour. And the WAFs is an experimental product, meaning that these models are very high resolution. They update very quickly. A lot of computing horsepower goes into making these things. And there's so many different components you can look at. It shows you probability of rotation downstream of these storms. There's a lot of things we could use to dissect, a crap ton of data you can pull from. Let's just look at the overall storm mode here, and let's kind of take a look at this now. And at least according to WAFs, not seeing a lot in the way of helicity swaths. You do see, and this is really cool, guys, you can actually see left-moving supercells on WAFs. That's how high-res this thing is. It's so cool. And if you're wondering how effective WAFs is, it's actually done pretty decent. Not to say that it's a silver bullet and it gets everything right, but there have been quite a few publications in the AMS that have shown that WAFs was able to predict a supercell like 3-4 hours in advance or several hours in advance. So it has had success. I would even argue, if we look back at the event today, we did have a supercell moving through east central Louisiana, and that actually produced some pretty decent rotation, did drop tornadoes as well. So the WAFs actually verified today. I know a lot of people are talking about bust, and they're talking about, whether or not this event actually verified. That remains to be seen. But if there's any major takeaway, is that the WAFs did a pretty damn good job today. What's going on? NWS the second, welcome to the stream. Currently about to storm pretty bad out here. Where are you from, my friend? Let me know in the chat below. You don't have to dox yourself, but give me a general idea, and I'd be happy to take a look at that for you. Let's take a look, though, at a couple of products before we dive back into the radar. And just wanted to see, what do I look at? Gosh, there's so many data points we can really dive into. I guess what I'm really curious about is the 0 to 1 shear. So let's take a look. I mean, going into tonight, at least according to the WAFs, and that's my cat in the background, you have strengthening winds here. Surface to 1 actually increases in places like the following. Just in west central Alabama, extreme east central Mississippi. That continues to kind of move northward. So still some rotational pockets here, and then even getting a little bit farther south, and you're right around Baton Rouge. Oh, interesting. We were just talking about that storm. We'll look at it here in a second, my friend. But we do have, again, according to the WAFs, they are still showing some 0 to 1 kilometer shear actually strengthening. And remember, 0 to 1 kilometers and even 0 to 3, we're really talking about our low-level jet. So let's just recap here. This is the latest WAFs run. This is the Warren on Forecast simulation, a very wonderful product, yet experimental, showing some continuation of the low-level winds going into tomorrow morning for places like west central Alabama and even near Mobile, to the north of Mobile. We're still, even in this area, talking about, say, 28 to 34 knots of shear. By the way, NWS the second, like I said, we'll take a look at that storm in a moment near your area. We are seeing mostly damaging winds. The good news is we're not going to be seeing anything in the way of rotation with that storm. That is all cold pool to hell. We're likely just going to see some damaging winds. No Tor possible tag on that severe thunderstorm, like I said. We'll look at that here in just a moment. Just 2 more products that I wanted to show here. And let's go over to severe. And I want to look at least, not vertical motion, hail, no. I wanted to find rotation. Updraft helicity. There we go. We love updraft helicity. So this is forecasting out in advance. And we're not seeing much, right? And remember, updraft helicity is that corkscrew motion of our updraft with height. Not seeing much according to the WAFs, at least from 2 to 5 kilometers. The other thing is updraft helicity. How about 0 to 2? I'm curious on that. There we go. Okay, we're seeing some 0 to 2, so kind of near the surface, some paintballs. It's really faint to see, guys, but they kind of are scattered, isolated around this area by the time we get to tomorrow morning. So there is still the chance that exists that some of these storms will rotate, considering the fact that our low-level jet will still be continuous in this region over the next few hours. Let's head on back here to our radar and take a look. Since you guys are coming on in and you're probably looking for an update here, I'm going to start first with our friend NWS. You're right near Baton Rouge. And, well, unless if you were talking about White Castle, you'd be talking about some damaging winds. But let's actually put back on our reflectivity and show you what we're looking at right now. Which I mentioned NWS this morning. Sounds good. I looked at velocity and a little spot set around 78. Is this the same system that has a slight risk for Florida tomorrow? Yes, it is. And we can talk about the slight risk here in a little while. So for Baton Rouge, well, let's just kind of take a look here. You got a few cells moving through. These are currently not severe at the moment. Could expect to see some heavier rain. And one of the things that we've really been talking about here during this discussion at times is that, we are dealing with a drought, right? And so, even for a place like Baton Rouge, you might not be seeing severe weather at the moment, but we're certainly going to be seeing some runoff with these heavier showers and thunderstorms that move through here over the next 30 to 40 minutes, especially near Plaquemine. Let me know if I pronounced that correctly. Garden, or Gardier, it's just the south of Baton Rouge. Baker and Zachary. Plaquemine, got you. Yeah, so Plaquemine, you're kind of right in between like the non-severe cells and then this guy, this guster right here named St. Martinville, right near that area. So, you are going to be seeing some shower and storm activity. This severe cell is going to continue to move off to the east. And let's actually talk about that real quick because, I'm from the Midwest, guys, and if there isn't much going on as far as tornadic development, I like to try to find some other storylines that we can talk about here. And mostly with this guy, even on velocity, this is a lot of cold pooling. And that's just going to move off to the east. So, not seeing much rotation. We don't have a Tor possible tag on that. We could take a look at the warning itself, and it did get a little bit smaller from the last time we saw it. So this is going to be for 60 mile per hour wind gusts as expected. Like I said, we got a cold pool. That cold air is rushing forward in the form of wind gusts. And so, St. Martinville, Broussard, Youngsville, Del Cambre, Cade, Couteau, Lydia, and these areas beyond Acadia Regional Airport, going to be seeing mostly damaging winds, not expecting much in the way of rotation, at least at the moment. Unless if we're talking about this guy that moves on shore, not really too concerned about tornadic development for your area near Baton Rouge. For you, I will say we could be seeing some reflectivity, or not reflectivity. We could be seeing some storms move through the region. Again, heavier downpours is kind of my concern for you, NWS. Could see a lot of that runoff. We got a pretty dry water table. Very dry conditions. We've been dealing with drought for the last several weeks in your region. I don't have to tell you that twice. So that's my concern, at least for you at the moment. Let's take a look at the other severe thunderstorm warnings right now. I mean, we started off this stream by looking at some storms fighting for rotation, and now they've really started to weaken off. I wish I could show you the lightning activity. It's crazy. I bet, man. Oh, yeah, I bet. I mean, we haven't even looked at the Cape profile yet, but even what I saw this morning, this environment is really outperforming a lot of the models. I would even say from a thermodynamic point of view, I remember even just a couple of days ago, we were talking about Cape, surface Cape being 600 to 800? We literally had Cape even in southern Louisiana like near 2,000 today. So it definitely outperforms on the thermodynamic storyline. And like I said, NWS, I certainly don't doubt for a moment that you're seeing lightning. I definitely think you are. Let's head on over to a couple of other severe thunderstorm warnings. We've been tracking these cells for a while. Looks like this guy is still severe thunderstorm warned. 60 mile per hour wind gusts, nickel size hail. Just based on reflectivity, it looks like it's really falling apart. Let's check our velocity and see what's going on here. Does this have a Tor possible tag on it? It does. Okay, that's what I thought, because we are seeing some slight rotation still, but it's really trying to get its act together. This cell has been constantly recycling for a while now. We even have a little bit of a velocity uptick just to the east and even north of Lissman. So can it hit EWR, please? No interruptions to planes, okay? Absolutely not. Let's not do that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this is still Tor possible. Like I've been saying, guys, I've been preaching this all night long. I mean, it's still the right environment. I'm not trying to sit here and like hype up an event. I'm just telling you the facts. I mean, it's a low-level jet that's relatively strong. Really nice low-level veering. It's there. The environment's still there. So, anyway, a couple severe thunderstorm warnings continue, right? And we got a couple of flash flood warnings as well. The other severe thunderstorm warning we're looking at is just to the west of Summit. 60 mile per hour wind gusts, radar indicated. And like I said, a couple of Tor possible tags. We're keeping a close eye on this. It does have some slight rotation to the southwest of Macomb, and even a couple little embedded rotations to the north and to the east of Liberty. Keep a close eye on that. Of course, we'll keep posted and let you know. So that is pretty much where we're at. I am slightly concerned about this cell in Liberty. A little bit. Slightly concerned. But like I said, we'll just keep a close eye on that. This is also Tor possible. So again, for our folks in Summit and Macomb, not Tor warned yet, and you also are downstream, even still, of a severe thunderstorm warning. So, I mean, keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. But it looks like they just canceled that, actually. Yeah, I think they just did. They're about to cancel that. We'll see if they issue any additional warnings here because, like I said before, there is still some broad rotation here within this particular cell. Let's head on back over to our reflectivity and see what we got here. And my goodness, it is such a mess. Such a mess. I mean, if anything, that rotation we were talking about is going to be somewhere embedded. And that's really the challenge here, right? And I think, Rose earlier on in our stream brought it up, and it was such a great point that, the problem is with today, even with the chaser convergence we have, it's really difficult to spot these tornadoes. It's really difficult to spot funnel clouds even. So it really takes the people at the NWS to to forecast these things, right? That's the important thing. I mean, it really, it takes a village to be able to issue these tornado warnings in the event that you can't spot it. So as we mentioned here when we were talking about our tornado reports from earlier today, those were all confirmed by the NWS. TDS, 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 and then confirmed by radar as well. Debris signature, right? So, that's where we're at right now. So far, 2 severe thunderstorm warnings remain, 2 flash flood warnings as well, and this little special marine warning that's off the coast here as well. So like I said, we're going to continue here for about another hour. As promised, we'll go until 11 p.m. So if you have any questions, I know many of you have already asked your questions, and thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate all of you for being here. Go ahead and post those in the comments below. Also, we have a lot of wonderful streamers out there who have been doing amazing work today. I didn't stream during the main event, but, of course, I know folks like Ryan Hall were. I know my friend Evan Freiberger was also streaming too. I think Max Velocity, I don't think he was, but I know Nate Schneider was. A lot of streamers today, and they're doing God's work. I mean, that really is helpful to a lot of folks. There's a lot of people now on YouTube now more than ever. I don't think all of us are watching the Weather Channel anymore. It's not what it used to be. So many of us get our information from really 2 mediums. 3. Twitter, Weather Service, YouTube. At least I do. So, huge shout out to those guys. Did a phenomenal job today. I was watching them throughout the day, and some damn good streams, really, and a lot of useful information. Trying to keep people as safe and informed as possible in an area of the country that's really vulnerable to tornadoes. I mean, there's been a lot of research around this particular part of the country just based on its sheer vulnerability to these destructive severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and damaging winds. Yeah. You watch the Weather Channel? Tony, you're a boomer. That's why. Bro. No. Reed was live for a little bit by chasing and then stopped as evening approached. Yeah. No, there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people I did name. NWW was one of them I saw. Gosh, there's a lot of people streaming tonight. And understandably so, right? You have a 10 SIG tour? Hell yeah, you're streaming. I mean, that's a lot of people want information when you're talking about a late season severe event, especially for the South. But yeah, Tony, no. I would be curious to know. Chat, all right, let's do a small poll. You ready? You ready, chat? Okay. Go ahead. How many of you, raise your hand, how many of you watch the Weather Channel? Raise your hand. Old Weather Channel is better. How many of you watch the I'm talking like, if you watch the Weather Channel, how many of you are watching it like daily? Like once a day? The first thing you do at the ass crack of dawn is turn on the Weather Channel. How many of you watch it? I'd be curious to know, honestly. So, poll in the chat. There's not a poll. I didn't put one together. But if you just raise your hand, let me know how many of you guys do watch the Weather Channel. I will not shame you if you watch the Weather Channel. I'm just curious, because I think a lot of people get their information on YouTube. I really do. Oh, man. Losing my voice. But the one thing I wanted to mention before I take a sip of water. Look at all the stratiform precipitation. If you are not under a flash flood warning right now, don't let that fool you. We certainly are seeing a lot of rainfall here in central Mississippi. Old Weather Channel is better. Only watch it to see the bad takes. Raise your hand, thumb. Okay, well, yeah, you guys watch it. I mean, for the bad takes. Okay, fair enough. You know what, the Weather Channel, like, it used to be good, I feel, in, like, 2008. Excuse me. 2008, like, 2004 to 2008, that was, like, the peak of Weather Channel. And for anybody that's, like, born before 1997, you probably thought the 90s was peak, which is fair. I hear Weather Channel in the 90s is actually pretty damn good. All right, so listen, we have still 2 severe thunderstorm warnings and a whole bunch of votes for the Weather Channel. A lot of you guys love the Weather Channel, and that's fair. Again, I'm not going to flame you for it. It's still a useful source. I just think there's better sources out there nowadays, and that's totally fun. Anyway, a lot of heavy rainfall tonight. We're going to continue this stream here for another hour. So be sure to like and subscribe. When we hit 100 subscribers, by the way, I will be doing a charity live stream for the St. Baldrick's Foundation. I want to actually plug that real quick since we have a little bit of a break here. The St. Baldrick's Foundation is for those who are battling pediatric cancer. And so I know I don't have a lot of hair right now. I'm trying to grow it back. But once we hit 100 subscribers, what I would like to do as an incentive to kind of do a charity stream to incentivize it, I will be buzzing off my hair on a live stream. It'll probably be my mother doing it. And my hair will then be donated to the St. Baldrick's Foundation for kids that have lost their hair. So it's a really great cause. If you have yet to subscribe, go ahead and subscribe down below. And again, I wouldn't be plugging this if we were talking about a much more major severe event or if we had something significant going on. Since it is rather quiet at the moment, I did want to take this opportunity to plug that and talk about it. But yeah, I'm really excited to do it. So if we can get to 100 subscribers, hopefully by, like, what, December? I think that's reasonable. Then, you know, we will go ahead and do that on a live stream, and you guys will see me bald for the first time in my life. I'm very much looking forward to it. All right, Agree Fancy 2011 was really solid for Weather Channel. Yeah, I mean, that was also Joplin, right? That was Joplin as well. We had Mike Bettis standing in front of the Joplin Hospital. What an infamous scene that was. I'll never forget that moment. That was just so heartbreaking to see. Actually, I'll tell you a quick story here, guys. Tony, I know you have no hair. I know, I get it. I've seen you. Quick story on the Joplin front. I actually had a client when I was working for another company who was a franchise owner down in Joplin. And one of my last days working at this company, I always wanted to ask him about his experience during that tornado and to see if he even experienced it. And so I got on the phone with him and I'm like, hey, Ryan, so listen, I know this is kind of a weird question, but I wanted to know, like, what your experience was with the Joplin tornado. And his answer was really fascinating. It had nothing to do with what he saw. His answer was the smell. He said that what he'll never forget is the pure smell of gas. It was so potent that he'll never forget it. And that was something that I was really surprised by. Because out of anything, like from a tornado disaster, you would think if you ever experienced something like that, you'd be talking about all the damage you see and you know, the loss of life, the loss of property, and instead it was the smell. And above all else, that was just absolutely fascinating. Didn't know you had hair. I do have hair. Hey, look what's on top of my head. Come on. But yeah, no, thank you guys for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to go for another hour here. Let's get back on track. All jokes aside, all stories aside, all fundraiser plugs aside, let's head on back to our severe weather. And this little cell is still hanging on, beginning to move a little bit more north into places like Tumsuba, as well as Cuba and York. Really embedded within the stratiform precipitation shield. Currently warned for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, as well as nickel-sized hail. And this is going to be near Alamucha around 9:50 p.m. In just the next couple of minutes, Alamucha, you're going to be experiencing this cell here. And then a tornado watch is in effect until 11 p.m. for east central Mississippi. This is still tour possible. Let's take a look here at the velocity map. And yeah, I mean, we still have some rotation. I mean, it's relatively weak, right? That's been sort of the theme of tonight's stream is weak and recycling rotation. But it's still there, right? I mean, it's understandable as to why we're seeing a tour possible tag. Very weak in nature. And to be honest with you, depending on what happens with this cell as it continues to move northward, I don't know if it's going to hold together, but we shall see. I mean, here's the other thing to consider too, guys. I mean, if we're going off of the WAFS model and some of our short-term guidance, it did note that some of our low-level veering is going to really strengthen right in this area. So, I mean, it's not out of the question, right? This cell is, although it's kind of embedded in stratiform crap, it still could rotate, right? And we're actually seeing that right now. Also, another area that's kind of piqued my interest is near Taylorsville. This storm is not warned, but this was actually the cell that we were concerned about earlier on in the last, say, 30 minutes. And it is starting to get a little bit of a hook, albeit very rain-wrapped. And this cell has been fascinating to watch. This is actually one that I believe was responsible for putting down tornadoes earlier on this afternoon and evening across extreme east central Louisiana and west central Mississippi. And over the last, say, 30 to 45 minutes, we've seen this storm just constantly recycling its inflow. It's fallen apart, it's been severe warned, it's been Tor warned, and then now it's no longer warned at all. But very faint, you can see this low-level flow beginning to move into the storm. Just recorded winds, sustained winds up to 15, gusts 25 to 30. Nice, NWS, and welcome back, and glad to hear you were safe after taking that very risky observation. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the severe storms for you are going to be to your south, but you still do have, all jokes aside, that cold front moving through. So expect to see some stronger winds behind it. Wouldn't be surprised in the slightest to see that happen. But this cell, I mean, we'll keep a close eye on this here. This is rather interesting. Echo tops. Oh yeah, let's take a look at that. Great point. Why not, shall we? Current echo tops right now in the Taylorsville cell, which is not warned at the moment, is right around 35 to 38,000 feet. So very appreciable cell. And then our severe warmed cell to the north and just to the south of Tumsuba is, well, it's sort of dying off quite a bit. That storm's starting to begin to move out of the warned area. Still, of course, severe warned for these areas and that county just outside of Meridian, but really starting to weaken quite a bit. Flash flood warning, honorable mention. We mentioned that a couple times during the stream, but just to let you know, it's still there. And our other storm, shall we talk about it? Right near NWS, right? So, my goodness, I'm losing my voice. Hold on a second, chat. I'm like dying here. I need more water. Oh, hey! Look, this water bottle is full. Yes. Coming in clutch. Tony said, any hail with these storms? Not really. No, we're only seeing about nickel to quarter size. We did have some bigger hail earlier, but that was before I was streaming. I think, I don't know, I think Ryan Hall or some of those other streamers were showing some pretty strong storms. Reed Timmer, I think we had some hail. I think we had some golf ball size hail earlier with some of those higher lapse rates. So this severe storm that we've been talking about, getting ever so close to our favorite fast food restaurant, White Castle, has weakened below severe limits, even though it is still showing sort of that bowing segment. Excuse me. So some damaging straight line winds still occurring with this storm. It has, though, fallen below severe limits. So once that moves through Laurelville and eventually gets to Donaldsville and White Castle, it's going to be interesting to see if that storm regains its severe criteria. I will say that cold pool we've been referring to, those straight line winds that have been rushing forward, you know, it's starting to weaken a bit. So unless if we can get to see that re-strengthen, we're likely not going to see an upgrade back to a severe thunderstorm warning. We'll keep a close eye on it. You know, I could be wrong, but at least at the moment it has fallen below severe limits. For our friend in this area to the south of Baton Rouge, seeing some light precipitation and likely seeing some pretty good lightning shows to your north and to your south with some of those heavier cells. So I'd be curious to see it. Send me some of those lightning pics. You can also message me on Discord, NWS. I'd be curious to see that. Stay hydrated. Yes. Drink water, right? That'd be a good shirt to have. That'd be a really good shirt to have. Drink water. If I was to sell any merchandise on this channel, it'd be drink water. What do you guys think, chat? Think I should do that? I think I should. All right. I want to keep a close eye on this cell. I really do. Because so far, out of any... Well, okay. Well, hold on. There's actually a couple of areas I want to keep a close eye on. So we have our still severe thunderstorm warned cell well to the north in places like Tomsuba and Kiuba. Both rhyme. This storm is giving some broad rotation, but that's just not really holding together very well. I mean, still some really strong winds with this thing, and to be quite honest with you, wouldn't be surprised if we see an extension of this severe thunderstorm warning, considering the strong velocities we're seeing there. But overall, still some very broad rotation just to the south of Tumsuba. We'll keep a close eye on it. Still a tour possible. Still moving into a decent environment for tornado development. And same goes for these other cells that are not severe thunderstorm warned. We've been keeping a close eye on Taylorsville. Did show a tight couplet here, and we actually still do have a relatively tight couplet, but it looks as though it's trending more towards a broad rotation as it moves through Taylorsville. This is not warned right now. If you're in Taylorsville, it's not severe thunderstorm warned. It's not tornado warned, but we need to keep a very close eye on that. All right, let's see here. Yeah, so I did see that, Tony. Thank you for letting me know. And like I said, I'm keeping a close eye on it here. Taylorsville is not currently warned according to Radarscope and according to what we know from our NWS offices that are putting out these warnings. But I am keeping a close eye on this. So if you're in Taylorsville, right, we are seeing some broad rotation. You want to keep a close eye on this storm. It may go warned at some point. We'll see. And then our other secondary area of rotation that did pique my interest is actually to the south and west of Brookhaven. This is still relatively broad, but we are seeing a bit of a tightening of rotation within this cell as well. Keep in mind, though, I mean, a lot of these cells, if we just go back to reflectivity, although we have the environment supportive, look at this. It's all very clustered, right? Our storm mode is very QLCS based as that continues to move off to the east. You know, and by the way, I think I've mentioned this now like 6 times during the stream, but that's totally fine. These cells, this line of showers and storms that continues to feed in to the north, that's all inflow. I mean, like, even if you didn't have any sort of skew-T sounding, or if you didn't have, you know, any other tool disposable to you to try to identify a low-level jet, you can just see the convection rolling off the Gulf, right, and feeding into these storms. So a lot of moisture. This is a very moisture-rich environment. Really moist boundary layers we're talking about here. But yeah, I mean, Tony, back to your point, I think you asked this before. I'll just kind of answer it again. Not seeing much in the way of hail. I mean, we are seeing some small hail, nickel quarter size, but I think you can attribute a lot of that to just the overall storm mode. I can actually show this to you again. Let's look at here the low-level lapse rates. Yeah, we've really dropped off quite a bit. I mean, we were talking about earlier this afternoon about 6.5 to about 7. Remember, our lapse rates are cooling with height, right? Our temperature decrease with height, Celsius per kilometer. It would be expected in this type of environment that as we, you know, sort of decrease our diurnal heating throughout the evening into the overnight, that our lapse rates are also going to start to decrease as well. That's why we're seeing 5.5 Celsius per kilometer here with our low-level lapse rates. And if we also look at our mid-level lapse rates, you should be able to see somewhat of the same, although somewhat appreciable though. We got about 6.5 Celsius per kilometer. So the mid-level lapse rates are pretty decent. Low-level lapse rates are struggling quite a bit. So that's likely why we're not seeing much in the way of hail. You know, lapse rates in the low levels are not doing so hot, unlike the ones that are, you know, in the mid levels, right? So yeah, go ahead and, oh, by the way, I am so sorry. I just missed a bunch of questions here. Maybe that goes severe warned. Is this QLCS surface based? Yes, it is, because you have a lot of your LCL pretty close to the ground. So if I pull up here the soundings, so the skew-Ts, right? This is all very low LCLs. So it is surface-based. This is surface-based convection. Also, our CAPE right now, I wanted to mention that. Nice pool of CAPE within this area. That's why I've been kind of concerned, because we have seen nice veering in this area, but also the greatest instability right in south central Mississippi. So it'll be interesting to see if that CAPE profile moves a little bit more to the north. It looks like it does. And as I even mentioned too, I mean, based on what the WAFs was showing right around tomorrow morning, and I think the SPC kind of alludes to it as well, those line of storms, I mean, you can get some rotation with those too, especially as that CAPE advection really moves north, or that thermal advection moves northward into the Alabama, Mississippi central vicinity. So rotation looks to be tightening. Let's take a look. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. So the area of concern for the rest of the night is really going to be, to be quite honest with you, south central Mississippi. It's going to be this area. That's our greatest instability. We also have quite a bit of veering going on. Any storms that are moving to the north, at least at the moment, are going to be away from that instability. So the storm in Meridian could try to rotate again, but honestly, I think they're going to let that expire. Unless if there's any rotation on that storm. There's still some strong winds, but, you know, I'm not too concerned. Yeah, so Taylorsville, here we go, right? Just the environment we were talking about, that sector, that area of concern, right in this area. Even though we're talking about a lot of clustered convection, not much in the way of discrete to semi-discrete activity, we still are seeing some rotation. And look at that, right? Now that's really starting to tighten here just through Taylorsville. So if you're in Taylorsville, you need to be keeping a close eye on this storm. It is not severe warned yet. It's not tornado warned yet. But keep a close eye. I mean, this storm is really in the right environment. We just talked about surface-based cape. We can talk about the shear too. Look at that, right? It's in 30 knots of surface to 1 shear. Surface to 3 is about 40 knots. And then our effective shear is near 65. So this corridor right here, and I'm going to go ahead and draw this in black, and we're going to go right back to the Radarscope radar. This is an area I am relatively concerned about here in the short term. South central Mississippi, the right parameter space is there. You got instability, you still got shear. Storm mode has really been the challenge, right? You got a lot of storms fighting for inflow, but the conditions are certainly ripe. And also, as we talked about, LCO heights relatively low, mixed layer cape, you're talking about near 1,000. So pretty unstable environment. Let's head right back to it now and take a look. And here it is, right? There is that rotation near Taylorsville. We'll keep a close eye on that here in the short term. We also have that broad rotation we're continuing to monitor just to the south of Brookhaven. Again, these two areas, Brookhaven, Taylorsville, you are not under any tornado warning, any severe thunderstorm warning at the moment, but we need to keep a close eye on this. It's actually moved already through Taylorsville. At least right now, I'm concerned for folks in Bay Springs. So if you're in Bay Springs or anywhere in between Bay Springs and Heidesburg, you want to keep a close eye on this cell because this is turning out to be rather interesting. It's in a really ripe environment for additional development. We might have this storm to the north maybe interfere with that, but it looks as though it'll be interesting to see. It's got some room to run right in between Bay Springs and Heidelberg. Right in between Bay Springs and Heidelberg. Definitely concerned about this. We just had a new loop and a new run come in here. And yeah, still showing rotation. Did drop off just a little bit, but still got rotation with this thing. Let's take a correlation coefficient. Not much. Not seeing anything that's too concerning. So we're not, we haven't had anything confirmed yet. Why isn't Taylorsville not warned? Not sure. Likely just to see what happens with it. I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure there must be a reason. I mean, keep in mind the Weather Service, they are a little bit ahead. But yeah, I mean, folks, this is a nice hook echo here that just moved through Taylorsville. This is an embedded supercell that has just moved through Taylorsville, and is going to continue to move off to the east. It's not severe warned right now. As a matter of fact, all of our severe storms have been canceled. We only have our one flash flood warning to the south of Jackson. We have a bunch of other storms that are moving through. Even this guy down here near Macomb, rather interesting. Let's take a look at velocity here as well. Might be starting to see a bow echo development here. I'd be interested to see if the Weather Service puts out an eventual severe warning downstream of this line. Tylertown, Columbia, you're not under a severe warning just yet, but we are seeing a pretty concerning bowing structure as this cold front continues to move through. You probably can't see my arrow, but I'm going to draw it out here. This cold front, this is all frontal, ladies and gentlemen, and that's getting caught along the cold front, and we're seeing some bowing happening. Remember, I know we haven't really talked about the damaging wind threat, but we have really strong winds aloft. One of the things that we mentioned here at the beginning of our live stream is that we have really strong westerly flow from our Pacific jet in the mid to upper levels. We're talking about anywhere between 120 to 130 knots of westerly winds. it should not be of any surprise that we are seeing some bowing beginning to take place as these storms continue to get their upscale nature going. Meanwhile, though, let's head on back to our concerning supercell in Taylorsville. And yeah, look at that, guys. I mean, we still have rotation with this thing. Not enough to where it's warranting a tornado warning, but we are keeping a very close eye on that. It looks as though this cell might be about to run into this guy. So we actually have two cells here. It's very hard to see because we got a lot of precipitation going on. But we have one cell that's sort of moving off to the east, and then we have this supercell that's showing a nice hook echo near Taylorsville. That's going to be interesting to see what happens to this once we have a little bit of a cell merger. I don't know by how much that's going to really impact it, but like I said, we'll see here. Yeah, like I said, continuous rotation here in Taylorsville. We are going to keep a very close eye on that. Let's check back over to the Storm Prediction Center and see if we have anything new, and we do not. The other thing I forgot to mention, I guess, would be the thunderstorm outlook, which, to no surprise, is very elevated for places like Alabama as well as the Florida Panhandle. So if you have any questions, post those in the comments below. And like I said, we'll be streaming here for a little bit longer. I mentioned 11, but I am starting to lose my voice. That's the honest-to-God truth. Otherwise, I would stream till 11. I really want to try to see what happens with this cell, though, at least. I'm very curious to see what happens here. I mean, again, this is if it's in the environment, it's going to be this one. It's going to be the right place to do it. Right in an area that's very ripe with its low-level jet and strong instability. Double rotation, mostly just one at the moment. Yeah, just one singular rotation. And yeah, I mean, that's a nice inflow notch. I want to keep on that here for a bit. We'll also watch these lines that move through Macomb. Really nice bowing segment beginning to form. By the way, the other thing with these bowing segments, we also touched on this too. At the northern flank of these bowing segments, you also have to watch out for rotation. Right at this curl, you can get rotation to form. These storms will also be moving into a very good environment. So, wouldn't be surprised to see some additional warnings. I'm particularly, really curious to see about this line as well as this supercell to the north, which has actually started to lose its inflow notch. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. So for folks in Columbia, for folks in Tylertown, Bassfield, so-so. You guys, you have a line of thunderstorms that's moving through. Later on tonight, this thing is really starting to bow out. Might start to produce some damaging straight line winds with it. Isn't that something the NWS... Sorry. Brain fart, Tyler. Isn't that something the NWS should warn just for straight line winds in Taylorsville? Technically, no. I mean, the NWS does use their discretion when it comes down to tornado warnings. Ever since dual polarized radar, they don't want to overwarn. So, I mean, in this case, they're probably just being a little bit more conservative. And if you really think about it, oh, wow, now it's really spiked. So, we are starting to see some stronger rotation here. So what I was going to say before is that, for storms like this, even before we saw this rotation sort of spike up like we did, they try to be a little bit more conservative. But now we're really starting to see this thing strengthen, as I expected. And that's just going to be to the south of Bay Springs. So if you're in Bay Springs, if you're in Heidelberg, anywhere in between these two localities, we're not warned yet, but I would really keep a very close eye on this cell because it is starting to strengthen. And as I preached so many times during this stream, if it's going to do it, it's going to be in this environment right here, right now. And let's just take a look here at that cell. We're going to keep a very close eye on this storm. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Share this stream. All I care about at this point, if you know anybody that lives in these areas, anybody that could use this information, share this stream with as many people as you can in this area. Not necessarily people in New York and Connecticut. I'm concerned about these areas in South Central Mississippi. So if you know any folks in these areas that could use this stream, share it with them specifically and get the word out. Because like I said, I am really concerned now about Taylorsville. We just looked at it. We'll go back very quickly. Cape profile still holding at about 1,000. We'll not look at supercell composite. Let's go over to our photographs here. Yeah, guys. I mean, look at that. You're veering really well right in this area, and it's actually going into an even better veering environment downstream. So definitely concerned about this cell. If it's going to do it, it's probably going to be this one. And there's my cat. Yes, so if you have any questions, guys, post those in the chat, but we're going to keep a very close eye on this cell. And yeah, this rotation now, that has really started to tighten up. That is tightening rotation in between Bay Springs and Heidelberg. Again, this rotation's really starting to ramp up here. No tornado warning right now. No severe thunderstorm warning. But we really need to watch this thing. It is in a wonderful environment. And even downstream, got a lot of low-level veering with that jet. So is only a couple miles southeast of the rotation. No, it's really crazy to think about. Yeah, so this is really strong. I mean, at this point, I wonder when they pull the trigger. I'm really curious to see when they pull any sort of tornado warning. Not seeing anything in the way of CC. We don't have any debris right now. This is all spikes, right? These are CC spikes, not correlated with debris necessarily. In this case, it's likely some heavier precipitation. Let's look at some other products on this storm. Vertically integrated liquid, not much there. So not much in the way of significant hail. This isn't a really kind of pop-up supercell. As a matter of fact, we're probably seeing a lot of heavy rainfall with this thing. Let's go back to velocity. Yeah, this storm is pretty tight here. Look at that. So really strong rotation. We're going to keep a close eye. We've also been watching Macomb. We just had a really strong line of storms move through. You can even see on velocity that Boeing segment. Columbia, Tylertown, you're not under any severe storm warnings at this moment, but we are watching that. Could see some damaging winds later on tonight in the next, say, half hour to an hour. So be prepared for that. These storms are really starting to bow out, and we'll keep you posted here at least until the 11 o'clock hour. Back to our area of concern, this rotation, right? Very tight couplet really starting to form to the northeast of Taylorsville. That's continuing to move off to the northeast. So far, not warned. Wow, I am pretty much losing my voice. But I will try to stay on this storm as much as I can. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate every single one of you. We will do these live streams more frequently. I'm not ending this, by the way. I'm not done yet. I just wanted to say, we will continue to do these live streams. I will be doing one tomorrow morning, and we will be talking about the winter weather threat for the holiday travel going into the northeast New England. It's another topic we need to talk about, and even some rainfall. It's raining right now here in Chicago. Some nice steady rain could also cause some travel troubles for many of us. So, is this surface-based rotation? Yes. Yes, it is. We're only looking at tilt 1, so we are only talking about surface-based rotation. I mean, if we go up other tilts as well, I'm sure it's rotating too, and yes, it is. Yeah, even at our higher tilts, this thing's rotating. So it's rotating below, and it's rotating as we tilt our radar. So this thing is definitely rotating. No snow, I know. I'm not saying it's going to snow for New York City. Well, spoiler, it's not, but there are, areas in the northeast of New England that will. And it's likely going to be higher elevations. Tony said, shh. Yeah, Tony doesn't like the word nor'easter. I think he's allergic to it. He gets some really bad allergic reaction whenever you mention the word nor'easter. Okay. Anyway, all fun aside. Bassfield so-so. Especially Bassfield. Not just so-so. Bassfield, look, you guys have not dealt with any tornadoes tonight. Thank goodness. You probably never want to see a tornado again, considering the unfortunate circumstances you've had over the last few years. But I mean, the bad news is you are still going to be dealing likely with this Boeing line of storms that will continue to move off to the northeast into your region. Not severe warns, but it is producing some pretty damaging winds. Don't need that for Thanksgiving. I know we don't, but some of you will be dealing with some holiday travel troubles. Let's head on back to this storm. Look, it's still showing tight rotation, guys. We're still keeping a close eye on it. This continues to move off to the northeast, and you know, I'm really curious to see what happens with this cell. Still not warned. It's really interesting. And you know, as I say that, it looks like the velocity is weakened quite a bit. Nothing showing on CC, so we do not have a confirmed tornado south of Bay Springs. We do not have a confirmed tornado. This is all just radar indicated rotation. Not enough, though, for the Weather Forecast Office to issue a TOR warning on this. Keep a close eye on it. Still been showing some rotation, right? It's rather concerning. But at least in this last run, it is showing some weakening there. So that is that. We'll keep a close eye on this here, I think for, I would say another 15 minutes or so. Let's see how long I can keep my voice going. Because I can already tell I'm losing it. And it's not from talking. It's just the fact that I've just had this cold going on. And all of a sudden, I don't know why. It's been weird. I think I was kind of sick early in the day too, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's probably just in my head too. But yeah, we'll keep a close eye on that. We've also been keeping a close eye on this Boeing storm. Just a lot of activity we've seen today. And before anybody calls it a bust, right, we've seen severe weather. We did see tornadoes in that enhanced risk, so I would say that kind of verified, to be quite honest with you. Nor'easter, don't you even say that word. I just did. I just did. And I will never say it again, I promise. Unless if there is a nor'easter, but we're not expecting that right now. So, anywho, cool. Good deal. Yeah, so I guess the other thing I would want to show you, that pretty much covers it. I mean, for the most part, we're seeing this cold front continue to move east throughout Mississippi and Alabama. I guess we can take just a quick little deviation and show you the rest of the country. Seeing a lot of precipitation moving through Illinois with that low pressure system. We're going to see quite a bit of rainfall here, you know, especially over the next day into tomorrow morning. Heavy rainfall just to the south of the Quad Cities and up through central Illinois. Looks like Taylorsville is weakening. Yeah, it is. We'll take a look at that in a second. So quite a bit of precipitation. This is really going to be our system of concern, especially as that moves off to the east when we're talking about New England. That will eventually be producing some wintry precipitation for some of our higher elevations by the time we get to the holiday travel season, right around Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. For the most part, though, I mean, the rest of the region should remain relatively warm to where we're not going to be seeing a lot of wintry precipitation. But, you know, mostly concerned about the higher elevations in the northerly latitudes of New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, and central Maine, even upstate New York for a bit as well. Illinois needs snow. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, Tony. Quiet. I don't want snow. Leave me alone. I like my rain. My rain is nice. So yeah, KBMX, KDGX is what I wanted. Wait, which radar was I on? Was I on KMOB? Crap. I think it was this one. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, it is weakening slightly, but it's still rotating. Rotation's become a little bit more broad with this cell. All roads lead to Illinois. Yeah, they do. All right, so listen, I hate to cut the stream short, guys. I mean, I will just say this before I go. If you are anywhere downstream of this cell, in between Bay Springs and Heidelberg, and even in between Lewin and Pachuta, the storm is not warned yet. It has been showing some rotational characteristics here over the last, say, 10 to 15 minutes. It is in a pretty favorable environment to produce a tornado. So just got to keep a close eye on it, right? Keep a close eye on that cell. If you know anybody in these regions, be sure to share the stream with those folks. So that way they have the heads up on that. Could see a severe thunderstorm or some sort of warning tag on this once it moves northeast. We'll see. Remains to be seen. Right now, not warned, but at least just keep a close eye on it. And then also, we have a line just to the south and west for Macomb, Magnolia, and Tylertown. Really starting to bow out here, producing some damaging straight line winds, and that continues to move off towards the east. So Guys, I hate to call it a stream. I know we've had a lot of activity today, but like I said, I am losing my voice. And also, this was kind of an impromptu stream. I want to be able to conserve my voice for tomorrow because we're going to do one last morning stream before the holiday travel season. So you're going to want to tune in for that. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for all the views. Thank you for subscribing, for all of our new subscribers here. Please remember to stay weather aware. For any of you that are impacted by these storms, please stay safe, and we will see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.